I'm Alexandra Morgan, 32, standing in my ivory wedding gown at what should be the happiest moment of my life. The Grand Plaza ballroom sparkles under crystal chandeliers as my father, Ryan, approaches the microphone. My stomach knots instantly. His words, always sharper than knives, cut deepest when dressed as love. Each criticism over the years had been perfectly aimed to wound. But today, he knows nothing. Not about the empire I've built in silence, not the success I've hidden, from him and everyone in this room. The bank statements on my assistant's tablet, they'd leave jaws on the floor. Where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tell me, have you ever hidden a massive secret from your family while they underestimated you completely? Growing up in our Beacon Hill brownstone in Boston meant one thing: living under the shadow of generations of Morgan ambition. We weren't old money, but my father was obsessed with the illusion of it. He built Morgan Business Solutions from scratch, a corporate logistics consultancy now serving Fortune 500 companies. To outsiders, we were polished perfection. My father, the powerful businessman. My mother, the gracious hostess. My brother, the golden child. And me? Just there. Dad had strict ideas about what success looked like. Traditional business paths, elite universities, the right last names at cocktail parties. My mother, Grace, though kind in her quiet way, always deferred to him. "Your father knows best, Alexandra," became her go-to line whenever I pushed back. She valued appearances more than truth. At parties, she'd boast about Ethan's awards, while I was quietly ushered into the kitchen to help serve dessert. Ethan, my brother, 3 years older and infinitely more favored, followed Dad's blueprint. Flawlessly, right schools, right internships, the perfect LinkedIn trajectory. When he joined the family firm after graduation, my father practically threw a parade. "This is what carrying on a legacy looks like," he said, lifting his wine glass. I sat quietly, picking at my food, invisible, as always. My crime? Being different. Where Ethan thrived in economics and business, I fell in love with computers. At 12, I coded my first program. At 14, I rebuilt our school's internal website. My report cards were straight A's, but in impractical subjects like computer science and calculus. My father wasn't impressed. "Computers are for games, not careers," he scoffed when I showed him my first coded project at 13. He barely glanced before turning back to his Wall Street Journal. In sophomore year of high school, I built a prototype algorithm predicting traffic patterns and suggesting optimized routes. Pretty advanced for a 16-year-old in the early 2000s. I won first place and a slot at state competition. When I called home, Mom said, "That's nice, dear." I could hear Dad in the background. "Beginner's luck. Wait until she faces real competition." I did. I won state too. The local paper even featured my project. My father's response? "Don't let it go to your head. It won't pay the bills." That same year, I sketched my first app concept, a precursor to the product that would one day launch my company. I explained the idea over dinner, complete with market analysis and technical specs. My father cut me off. "Alexandra, stop wasting time. This is why your cousin Jennifer's already interning at Goldman Sachs while you play computer games." My mother chimed in. "Honey, maybe try subjects that'll get you into your father's alma mater. Tech is a fad. Business lasts forever." The college application process became war. I dreamed of MIT or Stanford for computer science. My father demanded Harvard Business School, his alma mater. When my MIT acceptance arrived with a partial scholarship, he refused to fund the rest. "I'm not paying for rebellion," he said. "Harvard offered you a place because of me. You'll study business or you'll pay your own way." I chose freedom. I cobbled together tuition with tutoring money, student loans, and a 20-hour-a-week job at the campus tech center. My apartment, shared with 3 other girls, was a shoebox, but it was the first space where my ideas weren't dismissed. Mom called weekly, her voice laced with guilt and suggestion. "Your father might change his mind if you just transfer to Harvard for spring semester," she said. "Ethan's already being groomed for management. Don't you want to be part of the legacy?" But I never was part of the legacy. At holiday dinners, I was the cautionary tale. Alexandra's little phase, they'd call it. My cousin Jennifer got toasts for her banking internship while I was asked when I'd get serious. Even after I made the dean's list, Dad shrugged. Computer stuff comes easy to you. Ethan's solving real problems. Every belittlement stacked like bricks around my heart. But instead of breaking me, they became fuel. I didn't crave their approval anymore. I craved success on my own terms. By junior year, I created my first marketable software and won the campus entrepreneurship grant. I stopped sharing updates with my family altogether. Their reactions only dulled my momentum. Instead, I focused on building something bulletproof, something they could never ignore no matter how much they wanted to. They wouldn't know what hit them. Not until today. MIT became both sanctuary and battleground. Sanctuary because finally I was surrounded by peers who spoke my language, code, algorithms, innovation. Battleground because surviving meant juggling 3 jobs, impossible hours, and academic excellence. Dad's Harvard ultimatum never budged, so I patched together a fragile financial life. I worked mornings at the campus coffee shop from 5 hours to 9 a.m., attended classes all afternoon, tech support in the evenings, and freelance coding gigs on weekends. Sleep became a luxury. Our tiny 2-bedroom in Cambridge, furnished with curbside finds, was nothing like Beacon Hill. My roommates and I would huddle in blankets during the brutal sophomore winter, surviving on instant ramen and campus meal swipes. It was hell. But it was mine. And somewhere between finals and freelance deadlines, I turned a prototype into a product. My first app, a user analytics platform designed for small online retailers, took off faster than expected. Within months, I had Angel, investors, clients, and a small remote team. By senior year, we incorporated. While Ethan was getting promoted at Dad's firm, I was pitching in boardrooms and silently scaling. And I told no one. Not my mother, not my father, not even my college friends. My startup revenue surpassed 6 figures before graduation, then 7. But at every family gathering, I stayed silent, nodding politely as my father praised Ethan for implementing a new CRM system. Jennifer was now at JP Morgan. I was still asked when I'd come home and join the real world. They didn't know that I had built one. After graduation, I moved west. New office, new team, new life. My company became known for its AI-driven customer retention tools. We landed mid-sized firms, then national chains. I became the founder tech blogs whispered about, the mysterious woman behind a game-changing SaaS platform. I kept my identity, quiet, my name buried behind an LLC, not for shame, but for strategy. My father had spent my entire life shaping me into a ghost. I let him keep believing in that ghost while I built an empire. So when today arrived, my wedding day, my moment, I made a decision. I invited them all. My parents, Ethan, Jennifer, all the people who overlooked me, dismissed me, categorized me as a cautionary tale. Let them sit in their designer gowns and bespoke tuxedos, thinking they still understood the room. They don't, because my wedding planner works for my company, the Grand Plaza Ballroom, rented using my business card. The champagne they're sipping, sponsored by a client partnership I negotiated. My dress, custom made by a designer who's also on retainer for our brand's next fashion tech collab. And my husband, he's the CTO I hired 4 years ago, my partner in life and in business. Together, we run a company valued at over $75 million. So as my father walks to the mic, likely to deliver one last backhanded blessing disguised as a toast, I smile. Not because I'm nervous, not because I'm trying to win him over, but because the only legacy I needed is already mine. Heating had failed for 2 weeks. I coded in fingerless gloves, a scarf, and 3 sweaters, refusing to call home for help. During my advanced programming structures class, I met Professor Diana Hayes, a former Silicon Valley exec who'd sold her security software firm and turned to academia. She noticed my project during lab hours and stayed late discussing its real-world potential. "You're thinking too small," she said, circling parts of my code. "This algorithm could revolutionize how enterprises manage distributed teams. Have you thought about commercial applications?" Professor Hayes became the mentor I never had. She introduced me to her network, recommended electives, and, most importantly, believed in my vision when my family didn't. The truly innovative don't fit neatly into old structures, she told me one late night. Your family wants you to follow a path they recognize, but you're building one they can't even imagine. In the student housing lottery the next year, I was randomly assigned Jenna Wilson, a business student minoring in CS, as my roommate. At first, we were total opposites, her extroverted energy versus my laser focus. But at 2 a.m., finding her analyzing market trends while I debugged code, something clicked. Your algorithm could solve the exact issue I'm studying in my distribution systems class, she said, peering at my screen. Have you thought about launching a startup? Our complementary skills laid the foundation for Morgan Innovation Technologies. Though back then, we just called it the project. Jenna knew markets and business strategy. I knew tech and code. We entered the campus startup competition with a prototype to optimize real-time supply chain logistics. We won first place and $50,000 in seed money. I called home. My mother answered. That's nice, dear, she said distractedly. Did you hear? Ethan just closed Morgan Business Solutions' biggest account. Your father's taking everyone to Bermuda to celebrate. She paused. Well, everyone but you. You've got your little school thing. That seed money rented us a tiny office, really. A converted closet in an old factory. We lived on ramen, caffeine, and drive. Our first actual product took 8 months and countless late nights, averaging 4 hours of sleep. The launch was a failure. We secured only 2 tiny clients, barely enough to survive. One night, after losing a major lead, I collapsed in the office, sobbing. Maybe they're right, I told Jenna. Maybe I'm chasing fantasies while Ethan's building something real. Stop, Jenna snapped. Your family's stuck in the last century of business. You're building for the next. We pivoted, narrowing our focus to predictive analytics in inventory management. It worked. Mid-sized manufacturers showed interest. Slowly, revenue trickled in, enough to last another year. During that period, Ethan occasionally reached out. Unlike our parents, he showed real curiosity, though he still didn't fully get it. On one of his Boston visits, he stopped by the office. Dad thinks you'll come crawling back when this flops, he said, scanning our code-covered whiteboard. But I told him not to underestimate you. You were always the smartest one. His support, however faint and filtered through loyalty to Dad, meant something. Then he added, you should just build a nice app Morgan Business Solutions can bundle as an add-on. That's when I realized, even Ethan couldn't see the scale of my ambition. At a tech conference in Chicago, we manned our booth under a crooked banner and duct-taped laptops. That's where I met Michael Bennett. He was presenting research on machine learning in logistics, directly aligned with our work. Unlike the VCs who dismissed us, Michael immediately saw our potential. Tousled hair, dark glasses, and a nerdy charm. He embodied everything my family disdained and everything I admired. Your algorithm's solving problems companies don't even realize they have yet, he said over coffee. That's what real disruption looks like. Our professional connection deepened, then turned into something more. Michael joined as Chief Research Officer, investing both expertise and a small amount of personal capital that helped us weather a brutal quarter. Romance during startup life was chaotic. Our dates were shared pizza at 1 a.m. while debugging, or cheap champagne on the office roof after closing a new client. Michael never complained about canceled dinners, emergency code fixes, or me falling asleep mid-sentence after 20-hour days. We're building something that matters, he'd say, handing me coffee and a protein bar after an all-nighter. That's worth missing a few brunches. 8 months into dating, Michael came to my cousin's wedding. It was his first real look at the Morgan family in action. He watched silently as my dad praised Ethan's latest promotion, then introduced me as Alexandra, still fiddling with her computer hobby. Later that night, Michael asked, why don't you just tell them about the company, about what we've done? I shook my head. They've spent my whole life dismissing this. I'm not giving them the chance to diminish it too. When we succeed, really, succeed, they'll find out, along with everyone else. What I didn't realize then was how dramatic that revelation would be. Year 3 was our crucible. After years of setbacks, pivots, and near shutdowns, we finally cracked the problem the market didn't even know it had. The key came during one bleary-eyed, sleepless night. We didn't need to make a better version of existing tools. We needed to create a new kind entirely. One that adapted in real time, learning, predicting, and solving before issues occurred. Jenna used her network to land a meeting with Westfield Manufacturing, a mid-size firm battling inventory chaos. Their CEO, skeptical but desperate, agreed to a trial. Within 3 months, our system cut their operational costs by 27% and slashed delays by 40%. They became our case study, our anchor client, and our springboard. Strategic decisions shaped the next chapter. I insisted we operate under the radar. No press, no family announcements. Just results. The business was called Morgan Innovation Technologies, a subtle nod to my family name, though they remained blissfully unaware. All corporate documents referred to me only as A. Morgan, CEO, keeping a layer of distance that prevented any unintentional discovery. After a grueling series of funding rounds, we finally secured $5 million in venture capital from firms who had once dismissed us, but now recognized our disruptive potential. With that, we upgraded from our rundown office to a modest suite in Cambridge's tech corridor. The team grew beyond Jenna, Michael, and me, eventually including 15 engineers and business strategists. Amanda Pierce joined as our CTO, having left a top-tier tech company. "I can work anywhere," she said in her interview. "But I want to work where people are actually building the future, not just improving the past." The early stages of growth demanded brutal hours, painful choices, and sacrifice. I missed holidays, birthdays, and family events, always with the excuse of late classes or short-term consulting gigs. I never mentioned the truth, that I was leading a company now worth millions. Michael's understanding kept me grounded. He shared my drive, my sleepless nights, and my belief in what we were building. When I worried about my family growing distant, he reminded me what we were fighting for. "You're creating something that will transform how businesses operate," he told me on a rare weekend in Vermont. "They'll catch up, eventually." International growth came unexpectedly. A Canadian client referred us to their European partner who deployed our platform across operations in Germany and France. Suddenly, we were juggling time zones, legal frameworks, and cultural nuances. After our Series B funding round, the company was valued at $20 million. I remember sitting alone in the office, staring at the signed term sheet. I'd gone from a girl who couldn't afford decent groceries to running an 8-figure enterprise. Still, my family believed I was working somewhere in tech support. That Thanksgiving, my father asked if I'd consider joining Morgan Business Solutions in a real role. I smiled, suppressing the irony. Our clients now dwarfed his. The following year marked our first acquisition, a small analytics firm with complementary tech. Merging their team with ours was a crash course in leadership. From aligning cultures to integrating infrastructure, each challenge sharpened my instincts and strengthened our foundation. As we signed Fortune 500 companies, anonymity became harder to maintain. I declined panel invites, award nominations, and keynote speeches. Amanda or Michael represented the company publicly. I used initials in press releases and kept my face out of industry photographs. Then came the news that shifted everything. Through industry contacts, I learned Morgan Business Solutions was in trouble. My father had resisted change for too long, rejecting digital upgrades and automation. While competitors modernized, he clung to paper processes and outdated strategies. The company faced collapse in less than 2 years. The revelation presented a profound dilemma and a powerful opportunity. I could let his company fail, validating all my choices, or I could intervene, quietly and decisively. After careful discussions with Jenna, Michael, and Amanda, I formed Phoenix Acquisitions, an anonymous shell company. Through intermediaries, we opened negotiations to buy Morgan Business Solutions. My father never knew the buyer's identity. The deal closed 2 months before my wedding. Legally, his company became a subsidiary of Morgan Innovation Technologies, though the paperwork masked that fact. Around the same time, a major contract with a global shipping giant pushed our valuation above $100 million. My personal net worth, between equity and smart investments, entered the 8-figure range. Still, I lived in a modest apartment, drove a basic hybrid, and avoided any display of wealth that might raise suspicion. Revealing the truth to my family wasn't an easy decision. Michael and I debated it for months. Would it repair our relationship or destroy what little remained? Living honestly means letting people see who you really are, he said one night as we finalized wedding plans. But it has to happen. On your terms, when you're ready. I prepared a packet: acquisition contracts, company valuations, bank records, just in case. Still, I hoped I wouldn't need them. I hoped naively that my wedding would bring out the best in them. Michael proposed casually on a Tuesday night in our cluttered apartment, surrounded by half-eaten noodles and glowing laptops. There was no dramatic speech or hidden photographer, just a quiet, heartfelt question asked while we reviewed code. It was perfect. It was us. I didn't buy a ring yet, he confessed. I figured you'd want to pick it out. That thoughtfulness, that refusal to assume, was exactly why I loved him. The next day, we chose a modest emerald-cut diamond. It wouldn't snag on a keyboard, and it felt like home. When I called my parents with the news, my mother shifted immediately into planner mode. "Spring weddings at the plaza have a 3-year wait, but I'm sure your father can arrange something," she said, already envisioning linens and string quartets. "Actually," I replied, "we're thinking something smaller, maybe the botanical gardens or a converted warehouse here in Cambridge." Her disappointment radiated through the phone. "Alexandra," she said, "a Morgan wedding is a statement. Your father will want to invite colleagues and friends. Think of Ethan's wedding, 300 guests, a write-up in the society pages. Ethan's wedding. I hadn't thought about it in years. The extravagant reception, the designer gown his wife wore, the deal he closed the same week. It had felt less like a union and more like a corporate merger. No part of that had ever appealed to me. I wanted celebration, not spectacle. Still, their expectations loomed large. Strengthened by Michael's unwavering support, I reminded myself, this was our wedding, not a networking event. The first major clash came when my father offered to pay. But his offer was loaded. The plaza, his guest list, his preferred vendors. In essence, his wedding. "We appreciate it," I told him over dinner at their home. "But we've saved for this. We want something that reflects us." His expression chilled. "Reflects what? Your continued rebellion? That computer repair shop doesn't even cover a proper wedding." I bit back the truth, that I could buy the Plaza Hotel outright if I wanted. "It's a technology consulting firm, not a repair shop," I said evenly. "And we're doing fine," he scoffed. "Whatever hobby keeps you distracted until you come to your senses." My mother, the lifelong diplomat, interjected, "At least let us help with the guest list. Your father has important connections who should be there." We compromised more than I wanted. The wedding would be held at the Botanical Gardens if I loved, but 50 of my father's business associates, strangers to me, would be in attendance. To him, this was still his event. Then the invitations brought another layer of conflict. He insisted they be formal, traditional, and feature his name as the host. When I pushed back, he snapped, "After all we've given you, you can't even acknowledge us properly on the invitation?" "What exactly have you given me?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. "You cut my college funding. You've dismissed every decision I've made, every step I've taken." "We gave you values," he said, "a name that means something, though you seem determined to waste both." A pre-wedding dinner with both families threw the contrast into stark relief. Michael's parents, an architect and a literature professor, asked thoughtful questions about our work. When I explained our latest project, my father interrupted, "Enough of that technical mumbo-jumbo. No one even knows what you're saying, Alexandra." Michael's father, calm and attentive, said gently, "Actually, I find it fascinating. Please, continue." My father quickly shifted the conversation to Ethan's recent business trip to Tokyo. The bachelorette weekend was my breath of air. Jenna organized a lakeside retreat with close friends from MIT and the company. Women who knew me, respected. My journey celebrated both the CEO and the bride. For 2 entire days, I lived without hiding. No secrets, no diminishment. "Are you really not going to tell them before the wedding?" Amanda asked one night as we sat by the fire. "The acquisition finalizes next week." I stared into my wine glass. Part of me hopes I never have to, that somehow we'll just move past all this and they'll accept me. Jenna snorted. And part of you wants to see their faces when they find out exactly who you've become. She wasn't wrong. The dress shopping trip with my mother turned into emotional warfare. She took me to Bergdorf's bridal salon, where she'd pre-selected 5 traditional ball gowns, full skirts, long trains, heavy beadwork. You need something that befits your position as a Morgan, she said, waving away every sleek, modern design I touched. When I finally emerged in the dress I loved, a column silhouette with clean architectural lines, her disappointment was immediate. It's so plain, she said. What will everyone think? That I look like myself on my wedding day? She sighed. Alexandra, this may be your only chance to shine in society, to make connections that could actually help your situation. My situation. The words stung. My career? I asked. Michael? Our company? She hesitated. Michael seems nice, but surely you don't plan to work at that little tech place forever. This wedding could open doors. Proper ones. I tried on the ball gown to appease her. It was objectively stunning, but I felt like I was playing dress-up, pretending to be a daughter I'd never be. Standing on that pedestal, drowning in tulle and expectation, my eyes welled. She misread the tears. See? You look beautiful. Like a true Morgan. I am a Morgan, I whispered. Just not the kind you and Dad want me to be. I returned alone the next day and bought the dress I wanted. A week before the wedding, Ethan met me for coffee, an increasingly rare event. Fair warning, he said, stirring his espresso. Dad's been drinking more. The business is tanking, though he won't admit it. Some mysterious buyer just acquired controlling interest. My heart raced, but I kept my expression calm. That explains the mood swings, I said. Ethan nodded. The wedding's triggering him, his only daughter, his disappointment, marrying a researcher instead of someone from his circle. He added air quotes, clearly disagreeing. I've tried reasoning with him, but loyalty to him always comes first, I finished. He looked ashamed. I've never understood why he's so hard on you. For what it's worth, I think you're doing fine. Whatever this tech thing is, you seem happy. I am happy, I said. Happier than he could ever imagine. The rehearsal dinner was our final warning. My father drank too much again. He made several cutting remarks about real careers and wasted potential. When Michael calmly tried to defend me, my father turned on him. You're enabling her delusions, son. A real man would guide his wife toward meaningful contributions. Michael didn't flinch. I believe Alexandra's contributions are already meaningful. Perhaps you just don't recognize them. The tension followed us out the door. As we left, he squeezed my hand. Are you sure you don't want to tell them before tomorrow? Clear the air? I shook my head. They've had 32 years to see me. I'm done trying to make them look. That night, unable to sleep, I quietly assembled a USB drive with all the proof, company registration papers, the acquisition deal, valuation statements, just in case. I told myself I wouldn't need it, that my wedding day would finally be the moment they saw me. I was wrong. The botanical gardens were transformed, strings of fairy lights, wildflower arrangements, soft jazz. The glass-roofed reception hall shimmered under emerging stars. For a few rare hours, it felt perfect. The ceremony was intimate and beautiful. Michael's vows made everyone cry. He spoke of building a life together, brick by digital brick. In mine, I acknowledged our partnership in love, in purpose, in work. If my parents noticed the subtle references to our business, they gave no sign. Cocktail hour passed without drama. Even my mother, perhaps softened by the beauty of the moment, managed to smile genuinely. She complimented my dress. It suits you, she admitted. You've always had your own sense of style. For a moment, I dared to hope. The reception began with our first dance, set to the song that played when Michael proposed. His parents joined for the second dance, their affection evident in every step. When my father led me onto the floor for the traditional father-daughter dance, his grip was too firm, his movements rigid. Quite a production for someone who claimed to want something small, he muttered. It is small. By Morgan standards, I replied. Less than half the guests Ethan had at his wedding. Because you have fewer meaningful connections, he said coldly. Consequences of your choices. I stepped back slightly. Can we not do this today? Just for today? He gave a tight smile as the photographer approached. Appearances, Alexandra. Always maintain appearances. The meal offered brief reprieve. Michael and I moved through the tables thanking guests. His colleagues were warm and congratulatory. My father's business partners looked confused, unsure why they were even invited. The toast began. Michael's best man, a fellow researcher, spoke eloquently about our partnership in work and life. Then Michael's father gave a heartfelt speech about welcoming me to their family. Finally, Michael took the mic, smiling in that way that still made my heart race. Alexandra Morgan is the most brilliant person I've ever known, he began. Most of you don't know this, but the day we met, she was presenting technology the experts said was impossible. That's who she is. Quietly creating revolutions while no one's watching. He raised his glass. To my wife, my partner, and the most innovative mind in tech today. I blushed. So different from my family's usual silence. Across the room, I saw my father's scowl deepen as he drained his third scotch. Jenna was supposed to speak next. But before she could stand, my father lurched up, grabbing the mic. My mother tugged at his sleeve, but he waved her off. I suppose it's time for the father of the bride to say a few words, he slurred. The room fell silent. He started conventionally. Alexandra was always determined. Stubborn, her mother would say. Polite laughter. When she wanted something, nothing could dissuade her, even when it wasn't in her best interest. My stomach tightened. I knew this script. Case in point, this computer hobby she's turned into a career, he said, adding air quotes. Guests shifted uncomfortably. The Morgan name was built on solid business, on connections and tradition. My son Ethan, he embodies that. Ethan stared at his plate. Alexandra? She chose a different path. Against advice, against tradition, against common sense. His tone sharpened. While her cousins excelled in law and finance, while her brother climbed the corporate ladder, she spent years playing with code. Some obscure tech support gig. Michael's hand found mine under the table. I had hoped marriage would bring her to her senses, that she'd finally understand her duty to the family name. He gestured to Michael. Instead, she's chosen to continue this rebellion with someone who encourages these impractical pursuits. The room was silent. Michael's parents looked horrified. Jenna reached for her phone. Our contingency plan. Let me be clear, my father went on, voice rising. She will never amount to anything down this path. She's a disappointment to the Morgan legacy. Maybe motherhood will finally... Michael stood. That's enough. Sit down. Son, you don't understand what's at stake. I understand perfectly, Michael said, his gentle voice now steel, and I won't let you insult my wife at our wedding. The room tensed. My mother looked ghostly. Ethan looked torn. And suddenly, I felt calm. All the years I'd stayed silent, diminished myself to avoid this exact kind of dismissal. It all seemed absurd. I stood, smoothing my dress. I'll handle this, I whispered to Michael. Then I looked at Jenna. She nodded, typing into her phone. The projector screen lowered from the ceiling. My father frowned, clearly confused. Thank you, Dad, for those illuminating remarks, I said. Taking the mic, my voice was steady despite my racing heart. I think it's time I clarified a few things. The room watched, still. My father stepped aside, scotch in hand, smirking, expecting a breakdown. He never understood my strength. First, thank you all for coming, I said, turning to the crowd, especially those who've supported us, both personally and professionally. I nodded to Jenna. The first slide appeared. Our company logo. Morgan. Innovation Technologies. I'm the founder and CEO of MIT. Not just my alma mater, but my company. A ripple of shock spread. Morgan Innovation Technologies serves 43 Fortune 500 clients in 12 countries. The next slide showed our reach. Familiar. Logos filled the screen. Our proprietary platforms save clients an average of 32% in annual costs. My father's smirk vanished. My mother froze, glass midair. Our valuation, as of last month, $127 million. A redacted valuation report appeared on screen. Then a bank statement, my personal net worth. Audible gasps. I turned to my father. That computer hobby you mocked? That obscure tech job? I built it into one of the fastest-growing tech firms in America. He stared, pale, blinking. But the most relevant piece of information today? I nodded to Jenna. A new slide appeared. Acquisition documents. 3 weeks ago, Morgan Innovation Technologies acquired Morgan Business Solutions through Phoenix Acquisitions. The crowd erupted in whispers. My father stumbled back, grabbing the table for balance. Yes, Dad. I didn't just build a company. I built one successful enough to buy yours. When your outdated practices sank it, I bought it. Quietly, efficiently, permanently. As of last Friday, I began, my voice steady and precise. I am officially your boss. Ethan's jaw slackened in disbelief. My mother's hand flew to her mouth, eyes glistening. Whether from shock, shame, or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. For years, I continued, scanning the stunned crowd. You've called me a disappointment, worthless, a waste of potential. Each word landed with deliberate force. You dismissed my education, my career, my choices, and my partner. You've done it my entire life, culminating in this public attempt to humiliate me at my own wedding. I paused, set the microphone down momentarily, took a sip of water, and continued. I didn't build my company to prove you wrong. I built it because I saw opportunities your narrow traditional vision of success couldn't comprehend. I kept it private, not out of shame, but because I knew you'd try to diminish it, just as you've diminished me at every turn. The screen behind me changed. Photos of our executive team, our offices, our product lines filled the display. These are the people who believed in me when you wouldn't. Michael, who recognized my vision from day one. Jenna, my first business partner and now COO. Amanda, who left Google to become our CTO. Professor Hayes, who mentored me when my own parents abandoned the responsibility of supporting my education. Finally, my father spoke, voice laced with outrage. You did all this behind my back? Used the Morgan name without permission? I laughed, calm, almost amused. It's my name too, Dad, and unlike you, I've brought it into the future. Around the room, reactions varied. Michael's parents radiated pride. My father's associates exchanged quick, urgent whispers, some already reaching for their business cards. And Catherine, who had always echoed my father's contempt, was suddenly approaching with a radiant, artificial smile. Alexandra, darling, I always knew you had something special. She gushed loud enough for others to hear. Did you, Aunt Catherine? I replied evenly. Because I distinctly remember you telling Jennifer not to waste time on Alexandra and her computer games. At last, year's Christmas party. She retreated, visibly flustered. I turned back to the guests. Success isn't defined by your diploma, your club memberships, or the number of associates at your wedding. It's measured by the impact you make, the problems you solve, and the integrity with which you live. Michael stepped up beside me. I reached for his hand. And for the record, I said, looking directly at my father, Morgan Business Solutions will undergo significant restructuring. We'll be implementing the very solutions you once called impractical fantasies when I first proposed them to you at 16. The company's survival depends on it. At last, my mother approached, tears streaming. Alexandra, she whispered. I had no idea. All this time? No, Mom, you didn't, I replied evenly. Because neither you nor Dad ever tried to see who I actually was. You only saw who you wanted me to be. My father cleared his throat. What happens now? Now, I said, Michael and I will enjoy our wedding reception with those who supported us. Tomorrow we leave for New Zealand. And when we return, you and I will be engaging in a very different kind of relationship, professionally and personally. As I stepped back, something remarkable happened. Applause. Led by Michael's parents, then joined by guests, even my father's own colleagues, now recognizing what they were witnessing. In that moment, standing in my wedding gown beside the man who always believed in me, watching my family confront the full measure of who I had become, I felt no vengeance. No triumph, just freedom. The rest of the evening unfolded in a surreal blur. Guests approached with congratulations and extended business cards, this time with sincere respect. The entire room had shifted, the power dynamic realigned. My father, left without another word. My mother, dazed, followed, though not before offering a tearful, confused embrace. Ethan lingered. "You could have told me," he said during our awkward dance. "Would you have kept it from Dad?" His silence gave me the answer. "I built this without the Morgan name opening doors," I explained, "because I had to prove to myself more than anyone that I could succeed on merit alone." "Are you really going to be Dad's boss now?" "Technically, yes," I said. "Practically, we'll see. The company needs restructuring, but I'm open to finding an arrangement that lets him retain some dignity." He nodded slowly. "He's going to struggle. 32 years of seeing you one way, and overnight." "It wasn't overnight for me," I reminded him. "It was years of work, years of being told I was wasting my time." As the evening ended, only those who had known all along remained. Michael's family, our MIT circle, our executive team. The celebration finally felt authentic, filled with inside jokes, genuine toasts, and relief. Michael and I left for New Zealand the next morning. The distance helped us process everything. One night, as we watched the sunset from a cliffside villa, Michael asked, "Do you regret it? Revealing everything?" "No," I answered. "I regret that it had to happen that way, at our wedding. But keeping the secret was becoming too costly, personally and professionally." He nodded. "You turned down speaking events, shied from recognition. You sacrificed visibility the company needs." He was right. The freedom to lead openly would benefit all of us. When we returned, reality hit fast. Dozens of missed calls from my parents, hundreds of emails from industry contacts, and a meeting request from my father's attorney. Our first official meeting was in the Morgan Business Solutions conference room, now technically mine. He arrived with his lawyer and Ethan. I brought our CFO and legal counsel. He looked older, smaller. "I underestimated you," he said. The words seemed to physically pain him. "I still don't approve of your secrecy, but I can't deny what you've built." To my surprise, the negotiations were civil. We drafted a 3-year transition plan, integrating his firm into our platform, granting him an advisory role and fair compensation. Not the total removal I'd once envisioned, but a balanced outcome, respecting his legacy while driving the company forward. My relationship with my mother progressed more quickly. Over lunch, she finally said, "I should have defended you. I always admired your mind, your will, but I thought supporting your father's vision was my duty." "It hurt," I told her. "Every time you stood by." "I know that now," she said, reaching across the table. "I failed you as a mother. Is it too late?" It wasn't too late, but it would take honesty and time. I invited her to our headquarters. She met the team. She saw the world I had built in her absence. Her pride grew. And slowly, the wounds began to heal. Within weeks, the media caught wind of the acquisition. TechCrunch published a feature, "The Secret CEO, How Alexandra Morgan Built a $100 Empire," while her family thought she was finding herself. The publicity was both a blessing and a complication. Our company's visibility soared, client inquiries and investor interest surged, but so did scrutiny of my family's internal dynamics. In quieter moments, I wondered, was the revelation worth it? The satisfaction had been brief, the complications lasting. Michael helped me reflect. "This wasn't just about proving your father wrong," he said. "It was about stepping into your identity, being seen for what you've built. That's not revenge. That's self-respect." 6 months after the wedding, we hosted the first Morgan family dinner at our new Cambridge townhouse. Tasteful, not extravagant. My father arrived last, still uneasy, but trying. The Johnson acquisition closed yesterday, he said over appetizers, our firm's first joint deal. Your predictive analytics flagged operational inefficiencies we would have missed. From him, that was praise. Ethan had found his place in the merged business, leading a division that combined his operational acumen with our tech innovation. His presence bridged old and new. Our greatest growth, however, came elsewhere. We launched a mentorship initiative, the Alexandra Morgan Fellowship, supporting young women in tech from underserved backgrounds. The program offered funding, mentorship, and access. What I hadn't anticipated was how healing it would be, for me. Each time a fellow shipped a feature, secured a patent, or led a project, a part of my own journey felt redeemed. My father even attended the first fellowship graduation. He sat stiffly in the back, but he came. After one fellow's presentation on distributed logistics networks, he approached her. Your optimization model for supply chain inefficiencies was, he paused, quite innovative. From him, monumental. The first holiday season after the wedding tested this fragile evolution. At my mother's table, tensions lingered. Yet when my father asked awkwardly about our latest product roadmap, I saw the effort. An olive branch. The arc from dismissed daughter to CEO hadn't completed in his eyes. It might never. But incremental acknowledgement was more than I had once thought possible. In truth, the real revelation wasn't at my wedding. It was realizing my worth never required his validation. I had built a company aligned with my values, not theirs. And with it, I had redefined the Morgan legacy. One based not on tradition or approval, but on innovation, integrity, and belief in unseen potential. The ultimate success wasn't acquiring his company or earning reluctant praise. It was breaking a generational pattern of conditional love and limited vision. Michael and I are expecting our first child this spring. And I promise, this child will know that their ideas matter, their path is their own, and their worth will never hinge on anyone else's definition of success. Now, I turn it to you. Have you ever been underestimated by those who should have believed in you most? Did you prove them wrong quietly? Or did you have a pivotal moment like mine? Share your story in the comments. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe, or share with someone who needs a reminder today. Their worth is not up for debate, and neither is yours. Thank you for listening.